My wife invited her entire family to watch her serve me divorce papers on my birthday. "Surprise! I'm leaving you for someone who isn't a disappointment," she said. Her father laughed. We never thought she'd actually marry someone so beneath her. They already had champagne ready to celebrate my humiliation. I calmly smiled, signed the papers, and walked out. Today, exactly 6 months later, she was sleeping in her car outside my house, begging to talk, her desperate texts reading, "Please, answer." This is something I never thought I'd write about. Part of me still can't believe it happened. But here we are. Fair warning, this is going to be a long story. Last Saturday, I turned 34. Not a milestone birthday, but Julie, my wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, said she was planning something special. All week leading up to it, she'd been acting oddly excited, constantly on her phone, smiling to herself, being super secretive. I thought maybe she was planning a surprise or a party, something nice after all the nonsense we'd been through lately. There'd been tension between us, not yelling or fighting, but a cold, quiet tension that, honestly, sometimes feels worse. We'd been married for 6 years, met in college. She was a glamorous business major from a wealthy family, and I was a scholarship kid working 3 jobs to afford instant noodles. Classic story, right? Her family never approved of me. Her father, Bronson, yes, that's really his name, like some 80s movie villain, made snide remarks about my humble background at every family dinner. Her mom would ask how things were with that little job of yours, even after I got promoted to team lead. Then there were Julie's endless Instagram posts showing off our apartment, not fancy by her family's standards, but the best we could afford while I worked overtime to save for a house. Julie captioned them things like, "Making the best of what we have," or "Simple life." As if we were some charity case, constantly comparing our life to her cousin Noelle, who married a hedge fund guy and lived in a freaking mansion. The last few months, Julie had been spending more time with her family, coming home late from work events, smelling like expensive cologne. She'd get texts that made her smile in a way she hadn't smiled at me in ages. I'm not an idiot. I had suspicions, but I kept thinking, if I work harder, get that promotion, maybe things will get better. So, back to my birthday. I got home from work. Yes, I had to work on my birthday. Welcome to adulthood, and the apartment was empty. Julie texted me to come to her parents' place for my surprise. Already weird, because their house is the last place I'd want to celebrate anything. But I figured maybe she was trying to mend things with them. I show up at their fancy suburban mansion. Julie greets me at the door with this odd smile that didn't reach her eyes. The living room is packed. Her parents, her sister Annabelle, a couple of cousins, some family friends I vaguely knew. They're all holding champagne flutes, and as I walk in, an awkward silence falls. Julie says, "Todd, we've got something special for your birthday." And her dad, at that moment, snickers. Not a laugh, a snicker, like a cartoon villain. I'm standing there thinking, maybe they got me a car or something ridiculous like that, though I knew it was unlikely. Then Julie pulls a large envelope from behind her back. For a second, I thought it might be plane tickets or something. And then she says these exact words, "Surprise, I'm leaving you for someone who isn't a disappointment." The room goes dead silent, except for her dad, who starts laughing loudly. I freeze, trying to process what's happening, and her father declares, "We never thought she'd actually marry someone so beneath her. Thank God she's finally come to her senses." Julie shoves the envelope into my hands. Divorce papers, already filled out, just waiting for my signature. Her mom literally pops open a bottle of champagne and pours everyone another round. They'd planned this whole thing like some sick celebration. I don't know what they expected, that I'd cry, beg, make a scene. But instead, something inside me just turned to stone. I looked at their smug faces, at the woman I thought I'd grow old with, and felt nothing. Like this was happening to someone else, not me. I asked Julie for a pen. Her smile faltered slightly. I guess that wasn't the reaction she expected. Her dad handed me his fancy Mont Blanc pen. I walked over to their pristine white marble countertop, spread out the papers, and signed every line without saying a word. No one spoke. The only sound was the scratch of the pen on paper and someone's awkward cough. When I finished, I looked straight at Julie and said, "Thanks for the birthday gift. Best one I've ever gotten." Then I walked out. I didn't slam the door, didn't curse, just left while they stood there in stunned silence. Their faces, when I didn't break down, were almost worth all that humiliation. I got in my car and drove aimlessly. Ended up at some dive bar where no one knew me. Ordered a whiskey, then another. Stared at my phone as texts from Julie started rolling in. "Why didn't you say anything? Are you really not going to fight for us? You're just proving my point by running away." After the third drink, something shifted. The numbness faded and a cold fury started to grow. Not the kind that makes you do stupid things, but the calculated kind that wants to methodically burn someone's world to the ground. See, Julie and her family didn't know how much dirt I had on them. 6 years of marriage to someone from a family that treats household staff like furniture. You hear things, you see things. Their accountant who gets drunk at parties and blabs about creative bookkeeping. The cousin who's sleeping with her sister's husband. Daddy's business trips that don't seem very business-related. So that night, I did 3 things. First, I called my friend Larry, the most ruthless divorce attorney in town. Second, I started screenshotting every suspicious text from Julie I could find in our shared cloud storage. Third, I made a list of every business contact and friend I needed to tell my side of the story to before she could. I didn't go home. I crashed at a friend's place. Woke up to my phone blowing up with more texts from Julie. No longer smug, now panicked. She clearly expected me to crawl back, begging to fix things. Instead, by noon the next day, Larry had already filed counter documents. I'd withdrawn my half of our joint accounts. I didn't touch hers. I'm not stupid. And I rented a storage unit to move all my important stuff while she was at brunch with her family. Probably laughing about how crushed I must be. A week passed. I was living in an Airbnb rental while figuring out my next steps. Julie went from smug to confused, then angry, then started calling me every hour. Her last text read, "This isn't how it was supposed to go." No, Julie, it really wasn't supposed to go like this. Larry says I'm in a stronger position than she expected. No kids, thank God. My name's on most of our major assets, and there's enough evidence of her infidelity. Oh, by the way, she'd been sleeping with her co-worker Ronan for months, which makes her claims about my disappointment pretty ironic. So that's where I am now, carefully planning my next moves. The anger hasn't faded, but it's focused now. Her family thought I was a nobody, treated me like dirt for years, celebrated the end of my marriage like it was a graduation party. They have no idea what's coming. Has anyone else dealt with this kind of public humiliation from a spouse? How did you handle it? Because right now I'm torn between the high road and scorched earth. And honestly, scorched earth is looking tempting. Update. Holy hell, guys. I didn't expect my post to blow up like this. Thanks for all the awards and support. And a special shout-out to the 3 people who DM'd me recommendations for their divorce attorneys. It's been 3 months since that hellish birthday, and a lot of you asked for updates. Buckle up, because there's news. Where to start? I guess with the bombshell I uncovered 2 days after my last post. I was going through our shared cloud storage to download photos I wanted to keep before Julie deleted them, and I stumbled on a folder labeled Work Presentation. Weird, because it was created around the time Julie started acting suspicious. Being paranoid now, I opened it. It wasn't a presentation. It was hundreds of screenshots of texts between Julie and her co-worker Ronan over the last 8 months. Pet names, hotel meetup plans, and enough emojis to stock a digital Walmart. Pro tip: if you're cheating, maybe don't save the evidence in shared cloud storage. There were photos of them together in places where Julie was supposedly working late. Turns out she wasn't analyzing quarterly reports at 10 p.m. on a Thursday, unless Ronan's abs were part of the financial breakdown. I forwarded everything to Larry, my divorce attorney, who just texted back. Christmas came early this year. That guy's a beast, and I'm all in for him. That's discovery number 1. But here's where it gets interesting. After the initial shock, I made 3 decisions. First, focus on getting my life together, not just on revenge. Second, let the divorce process go through Larry without direct communication with Julie. Third, start quietly building a new life that would eventually make her regret everything. The apartment we lived in was full of memories, so I found a temporary rental for a month. Nothing fancy, but it has a little balcony where I can see the stars. The first night, I sat out there with a beer, looked at the sky, and realized I hadn't felt this peaceful in years. I started going to the gym regularly, not for a revenge body, though I won't lie, that was a motivator too, but because I needed somewhere to channel all that anger. The first week, I could barely lift anything. My hands shook like noodles. Now I'm starting to see definition. Who knew emotions could turn into biceps? The divorce moved along. Julie apparently expected to get half of everything plus alimony because, in her words, she'd sacrificed career opportunities for our marriage. Larry literally laughed when he heard that. Sacrificed opportunities are hard to prove when you're spending work hours sexting a coworker instead of, working. The infidelity evidence became our trump card. Julie's family always presented themselves as perfect pillars of society. Her dad, Bronson, was constantly posting on LinkedIn about family values and business integrity. The threat of their precious daughter's infidelity going public during the divorce made them surprisingly cooperative with Larry's terms. There was one weird moment when I was picking up the last of my stuff from our apartment. Julie showed up unexpectedly, the first time I'd seen her since that birthday ambush. She looked different, hair messy, in sweatpants, something she'd never worn before. She launched into a long speech about how she'd made a mistake, that Ronan wasn't who she thought he was, that maybe we could talk about reconciling. I just walked past her with my box of stuff and said my lawyer would reach out to hers if she had anything to discuss. The look on her face, like she couldn't believe I wasn't falling to my knees in gratitude for this second chance, was priceless. So that's where things stand now. The divorce is almost finalized. No alimony, thanks to the infidelity evidence. We're selling the apartment and splitting the proceeds, though I left her most of the furniture because I'm starting fresh. I've reconnected with old friends Julie always hated. I remember my buddy Mike, who she called a bad influence because he once brought supermarket wine to dinner instead of something fancy. Turns out he's still the same solid guy, and now we meet up for game nights every week. I started that business Julie always laughed at. Vintage furniture restoration. Nothing huge, just something I've always loved doing, but Julie thought it was tacky. Last week, I made my first sale on Etsy. Profit was about $27 after expenses, but damn, it felt good. And now, for the juicy part. Julie's family business, high-end real estate, has been hitting some snags lately. Turns out they had a big commercial project that lost its main investor. This happened right after I had lunch with my old college roommate, who, surprise, now works at that very investment firm. Did I say anything specific about Julie's family over lunch? No. Did I accept his LinkedIn connection request afterward? Absolutely. Julie's sister, Annabelle, the only decent one in that family, reached out to me last week. She said Julie's a complete mess, and Ronan dumped her after her dad tried to get him a promotion at their company. Apparently, Ronan was only interested in Julie for her family connections. Shocking, right? Julie's Instagram has gone from daily posts about her blessed life to total silence. Meanwhile, I started posting occasional updates, hiking trips, furniture projects, nights out with friends, nothing flashy, just my normal, happy life. Her best friend accidentally liked one of my photos at 2 a.m., then quickly unliked it, so I know they're watching. Yesterday was what would have been our anniversary. I was on my balcony, scrolling Twitter, feeling pretty okay, when my phone lit up with a text from Julie. I know you probably hate me, but I can't stop thinking about where we'd be if I hadn't ruined everything. I miss your terrible jokes and how you always made coffee for both of us, even when we were fighting. The apartment's so empty now. Ronan was a mistake. My family was wrong. I was wrong. Please, can we just talk? I'm not above begging. I stared at that message for a full hour, typed and deleted about 15 different responses. In the end, I just put my phone down and went to bed without replying. The thing is, 3 months ago, I would have given anything for a message like that from her. Now I'm not even sure what I want. The anger's still there, but it's different, less consuming. I woke up this morning to find she'd sent 5 more texts overnight, each more desperate than the last. The final one was just, "I'm parked outside your place. Please come down." I looked out the window. Sure enough, her white Audi was in the guest parking lot. She was just sitting there, staring at the house. I closed the curtains and went to make coffee. "What would you do?" Part of me wants to hear what she has to say. Another part thinks opening that door even a crack will undo all my progress. And a small, petty part I'm not proud of wants her to feel what I felt that day at her parents' house. Life's a weird thing. 3 months ago, I thought my world had collapsed. Now I'm starting to think whatever comes next might be better than what I had. Final update. I didn't expect to be writing a 3rd update to this saga, but life keeps throwing surprises. For those just joining, check my post history for the backstory. Quick recap. My ex-wife Julie served me divorce papers on my birthday in front of her whole family, who literally popped champagne to celebrate getting rid of me. Classy, right? It's been exactly 6 months since that lovely surprise. A lot has changed. I moved out of the temporary rental into a real house. Nothing fancy, just a small 3-bedroom in a decent neighborhood with a yard where I can finally get a dog. More on that later. The divorce finalized 2 months ago with surprisingly little drama. Julie's family's lawyer folded like a cheap chair when Larry brought out the infidelity evidence. My furniture business is doing okay. Not enough to quit my day job, but it covers coffee and streaming subscriptions. I've got some regular clients who like my style. It's still weird to think people like what Julie called garage sale trash. That night was a regular Thursday. I ordered pizza, was watching that new Netflix series everyone's talking about. Honestly, it's mid-tier, but I'm too invested to quit now. Around 11:30 p.m., my doorbell camera pinged. I checked, thinking it was another drunk neighbor at the wrong house. Instead, I saw Julie's car parked across the street, just sitting there, headlights off. I thought maybe she was dropping someone off, but the car didn't move for over an hour. I did the normal human thing, ignored it and went to bed. But I couldn't sleep knowing she was out there. Around 1 a.m., I checked the camera again. The car was still there. Then my phone started blowing up with texts. "Todd, please. I know you're home. I just need 5 minutes. I've been trying to reach you for a week. Please respond. I made a horrible mistake." And then the gut punch that got me out of bed. I've been sleeping in my car for 2 days. I have nowhere to go. I went to the window, and sure enough, she was slumped in the driver's seat of her Audi, the same car her daddy gave her for her 25th birthday, the one she called entry level, even though it cost more than I made in 6 months. I debated what to do. The petty part of me wanted to close the curtains and let her enjoy her car camping. But I'm not a monster. I threw on sweatpants and a hoodie and went out. Her face when I tapped on the window was rough. Makeup smeared, hair unwashed, clothes looking like the same ones from her last Instagram post 3 days ago. She fumbled to unlock the door, nearly falling out in her rush to talk to me. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Not alcohol, but that stale fast food and desperation scent you get from living in a car. The second thing, she'd lost a lot of weight. Julie was always thin, but now she looked almost gaunt. She started rambling, half crying, half talking. It took a minute to make sense of what she was saying. Turns out Ronan, her affair partner, wasn't just sleeping with her. He was leaking info about her family's business to competitors. When her dad found out, he fired Ronan. Ronan promptly dumped Julie and vanished with a bunch of confidential data. But that's not all. Julie, in her infinite wisdom, had been covering for Ronan at work, fudging reports to make his numbers look better because she was in love. When it all came out, Daddy finally said enough and cut her off. No more job at the family business, no more allowance, no more paid-for apartment. She'd been crashing with friends for weeks but burned all her bridges. The last roommate kicked her out for not paying rent, and here she was, at my house as a last resort. I couldn't help but ask why she didn't go to her parents' mansion. That's when she dropped the bombshell. Her dad Bronson's business is under investigation for some shady financial dealings Ronan exposed. Turns out that self-righteous man had been cutting corners and cooking the books for years. Their assets are temporarily frozen, and they've had to downsize significantly while the investigation plays out. The karmic justice is almost too perfect. I invited her inside, not because I was taking her back, but because it was cold and I didn't need an ex with hypothermia on my conscience. She came in and immediately started crying again, this time about how nice my house looked. It's just basic furniture and some houseplants I haven't managed to kill, but compared to living in a car, I guess it was a palace. We sat at the kitchen table. I made coffee while she talked. The whole story poured out. How her parents pressured her to file for divorce after they found out about Ronan, convincing her she could upgrade and take half my assets. How they planned that birthday ambush to humiliate me and get me to sign everything quickly without a fight. How she realized a couple of weeks later she'd made a horrible mistake, but pride wouldn't let her admit it. She even said, verbatim, "I thought you'd fight for me." That's when I laughed. Not cruelly, just at the absurdity. She stages a public humiliation, calls me a disappointment, serves me divorce papers on my birthday, and expects me to, what? Beg her to reconsider. Write her a heartfelt letter about how I can't live without her. I asked what she wanted from me now. More tears, and then she laid it out. She wanted to start over. She'd learned her lesson and grown as a person in 6 months. She had nowhere to go, no money, no job. Her fancy degree useless without Daddy's connections. She thought maybe she could stay with me while we figured things out. I let her finish, then did something that surprised even myself. I thanked her. Thanked her for the divorce, for what she and her family really were, for forcing me to rebuild my life on my terms. The last 6 months have been hard, but weirdly liberating. For the first time since college, I've been making decisions based on what I want, not what would make her happy or impress her family. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Then more tears, more bargaining. She'd do anything to fix things. She's changed. She didn't appreciate what she had. I said she could sleep on the couch for one night because it was late. And I wasn't kicking someone out to sleep in a car. But in the morning, she needed to figure out her next steps. Without me. Her shock was almost comical. I don't think Julie's ever been told no in her life. Morning came. I made breakfast. Toast, because that's what decent people do. While we ate, her dad called. She put it on speaker. Probably a habit. And I heard Bronson's voice for the first time since that birthday. The smug condescension was gone, replaced by something I'd never heard from him before. Desperation. Their business was barely hanging on. Investors were jumping ship left and right. They needed help from someone with industry connections, and Julie had mentioned I was doing well. He actually asked if I'd meet with him to discuss mutually beneficial opportunities. I nearly choked on my coffee. The same man who laughed at me for being beneath his daughter was now practically begging for help. Julie looked at me with this weird mix of hope and shame. I told Bronson I wasn't interested in doing business with him but knew someone who might help. Missy, the woman I've been seeing for the last month. She's a genius at helping businesses with tarnished reputations. We're just friends for now. But honestly, it's the healthiest relationship I've had in years. There was a long silence on the other end. Then Bronson asked for her contact info. I gave it, ended the call, and looked at Julie. The realization was dawning on her face that not only was I not taking her back, but I was moving on. She left an hour later with a backpack of stuff and called an Uber to her sister Annabelle's, who agreed to let her crash temporarily. As she was leaving, she asked if I'd ever forgive her. I said I already had. Not for her, but for me. Holding on to anger is too exhausting, and I've got furniture waiting to be restored, and a dog to adopt. Speaking of which, meet Max, a 3-legged rescue pit bull I adopted last weekend. He drools on my couch and steals socks, but it's the best decision I've made in years. So, that's the end of the Julie saga. 6 months from champagne at my humiliation to sleeping in her car outside my house. Life changes fast. I don't know what's next for her. I hope she figures it out. I hope her family learns something. But most of all, I'm looking forward to what I couldn't do while trying to fit into their world. Traveling without worrying about luxury hotels, working on furniture without mockery. A dog that sheds all over the house. Thanks to everyone who followed this crazy story, for the support, the advice, and for calling me out when I was being a jerk sometimes. It helped more than you know. Has anyone else come out of a nightmare and realized it was the best thing that ever happened to them? What's your story?